Welcome to Virtue and Victory, a practical guide of Stoic virtues to triumph in chess and life. Adam Farr is a father, entrepreneur, aspiring Stoic, and amateur philosopher. Douglas Wong is a chess enthusiast, Stoic in training, and passionate about finding ways for us all to be at our best selves. Please welcome your hosts, Adam Farr and Douglas Wong.
Welcome back. Journey before destination. It's this phrase that I've had in my mind since I've read it in The Way of Kings. And it's resonating in my head like a mantra. And honestly, I truly love it. It's very meaningful. As I reflect back to our last discussion, we honed in to the concept of memento mori. And really, it's to remember that we all have the same destination, which in some perspectives may bring up across different feelings and may feel a little bit morbid, but I think it's beautiful when we realize that there's finite time, because it forces a few questions that we really should be reflecting on and trying to answer for ourselves. How will we make the most of our journey? How will we be measured? How do we measure ourselves? When I think about it from a simple standpoint, it's be good, do good. But we have to go deeper than that. And it might seem like a strange question, but this is what we do here. We ask the hard and weird questions. How do we know what is good? So let's kick off there, Adam. How do we know what is good?
So, as Socrates has told us, the key to a happy life is attending to one's soul. And that's the only true and real good. And when we look at the definition of the soul as the Stoics would define it, it really means what is in our mind, what are our beliefs, what are our thoughts, right? So we think about the soul, and then we would then naturally move towards the character of a person, right? So one of the things I looked up before we jumped on together was, what does it mean to have a good moral character, right? How do you measure someone's character, maybe, right? And everyone might have their own definition, their way of doing this. But to assess someone's true character, it's crucial to observe their behavior over time and across different situations. We've all heard the old adage, who you truly are is who you are and what you're doing when nobody's looking, right? The opposite of that could be when everybody's looking, who are you, right? Yeah. When you are the center of attention, are you humble? Are you not humble? Right. And so when we think about it, I think you can take both ends of the very big range and land somewhere. And I think it's important that people reflect on what character means for them, what their soul means for them, right? And we'll get into some more details here, but I'd say that is how I would start to answer the question, what is truly good? And I would lean into the Stoics and the philosophers of old to start defining that for us.
Who are you consistently? That might be a question that we can ask, right? We have various things that will happen to us in our life, and that's what we're kind of talking about. And this is the discussion that we have. So when I kind of, the analogy I will use is when I'm looking to go anywhere, because we're talking about our journey to a destination. I'll pull out a map. I'll pull out, a compass. Maybe, today we have a GPS. What was left to us from the Stoics that could be our compass or GPS?
I like how you said that, GPS, compass, right? Back in my day, you'd have to pull out a map. You'd have to fold the map out to figure out where you were heading, or you'd have to humble yourself and stop and ask for directions, right? Nowadays, we just punch in a couple of digits into the phone or into the car, and it gets us where we need to go worldwide, right? So we've definitely evolved. But when we think about the compass, right? When we think about what is truly good and what's truly important, and what our guide should be based off of what the Stoics of old have taught us, one thing truly matters, and it's the condition of our soul. So Epictetus touched on it, Socrates touched on it, the Stoics all touched on it. And they said that a good, excellent, virtuous character was the ultimate good, was the ultimate goal, should be the ultimate goal, right? And they taught us that the way we prioritize certain things and how we develop certain skill sets is what will determine whether or not we have a good, excellent character, right? So that's where the four cardinal virtues of Stoicism start to come in, right? Before I jump into that, I want to talk just briefly, which we'll touch on in other episodes, that according to the Stoics, a good, happy life is one that is in harmony with nature, right? We talk a lot about the natural order of things. I was texting with a dear friend of mine bright and early this morning, and I sent him this quote from Marcus Aurelius, where Marcus talks about universal nature's impulse was to create an orderly world. It follows then that everything now happening must follow a logical sequence. If it were not so, the prime purpose towards which the impulses of the world reason are directed would be an irrational one. Remembrance of this will help you to face many things more calmly, right? And so, really, what that is the love of fate, or truly believing that everything that is happening or that happens is necessary. Whether you get stuck in traffic, whether you lose your cell phone, whether you lose your keys, we don't know why things are happening. I think we spend too much time trying to understand and justify why things are happening when so many things are so outside of our control and just part of the natural order of how things must happen, that it gets us distracted. We can't focus on the things that are important. We can't maintain this spirit or this sense or this feeling of peace because we're so worried about so many external factors that we just cannot control. And we just need to accept them as necessary, as part of the natural order of things, and move on, right? And so we'll reflect deeply in one of these episodes about what the Stoics mean by the natural order of things and living in harmony with nature. But why I went there briefly was because in order to live the virtues, there's some acceptance of a lot of things, right? And so we'll go into each of the virtues at a higher level today because we know that by living those virtues, we can become people of an excellent character, which is the only true good at the end of the day, based off what the Stoics taught us.
Now that's easier said than done. So full acknowledgement. So what we're talking about here is really disciplining your mind because that's what you control is your mind and your thoughts and your beliefs. And so we're giving the summary of what we've learned through time from the Stoics and our own experiences on what can we do to discipline ourselves and move forward. And you mentioned this many times, being at harmony. And when I think about being at harmony, it's being at peace, which is a place that we all want to be. When you think about enlightenment or happiness, things like that, you at the root you need to have peace. And so this is really, you mentioned, you look at a map. This is the roadmap. We know there's some things and it's not easy. So definitely a worthwhile conversation to have together. And so we have the GPS. We know that character is super important. You have to nourish your soul. There's some things that kind of go in there, right? So we've mentioned the virtues, which are wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. I love that there's four. I kind of, when I think about the compass, north, east, south, west, they're somewhat simple, but I think as we break them up, there's a lot more to unpack there. And so I think we spend a little bit of time talking about, we'll go through them. What is wisdom? What is courage? What is justice? What is temperance? And the Stoics would teach us that you do start somewhere, and you start with wisdom. Um, so what is wisdom? Which seems simple. I'm not sure everybody can answer that, even outside of the Stoic standpoint. But I mean, I think high level, very easy is the ability to see clearly, make sound decisions. I always think about it. It's the ability to make connections based on experience and information that lead to a unique or better outcome. That's wisdom for me.
Yeah, for me, it's leveraging your experience to do good is what true
Mhm.
wisdom is for me. Knowing what's good and bad, taking logical decisions based off of data and analytics, and moving towards the best possible decision.
Mhm.
Leveraging wisdom to make really, really good decisions, right? And I'll go back to what I said earlier, right? I think we are in a day and age, or these days, we're often encouraged to think that people are selfish, people are competitive, they're out for their own advantage. We talk about that, whether it's in business, whether it's in personal life, whether it's in health, et cetera, et cetera. And I think we see it a lot in corporate America as an example, in politics as an example, in a lot of things, right?
Mhm.
And so I think of wisdom as, I guess, primarily understanding that the highest priority of our life is becoming somebody and attaining an excellent moral character. I think that's true wisdom. Stepping back, saying what's actually important.
Mhm.
You know, we we tend to think the people that make the most money are the most important and they
Mm.
make it in life. We tend to think people with the biggest house or houses or the person flying on the private jet, right? I think especially with social media, with this era that we're in, has convinced us that those things are the good things, right? And I think what we're encouraging our listeners to do is bring that compass back to what is truly important, becoming a person of excellent moral character. And so for me, wisdom is knowing that, yeah, all these things might be cool. Having a lot of money might be cool. Owning successful businesses might be cool when seen by the outside eyes. What we would say is, and what the Stoics have taught us is, actually what's actually cool is being a person of high moral character, having an excellent character, being a good person, helping other people, right? Many things can interrupt and interfere with that vision, right? Or that development of excellent moral character. And when they do, most people, if not all people, will find themselves living a life that is out of sync with our deepest natural inclinations, and will feel unhappy. We will feel, I guess, for lack of a better term, dirty or disgusting inside.
Yeah.
And I think that that is an opportunity to lean into the natural order of things and step back and say, I need some help. I need to talk to a philosopher. I need to talk to a doctor. I need to talk to somebody that can offer some remedies that can help me get back on track to what is truly, actually important, which is excellent moral character. And so, again, I went a lot deeper into wisdom. Again,
Mhm.
I think it's all going to be coming together for our friends and our listeners. But I think for me, that's how I start to really get into wisdom. And I think we'll have a full episode on each one of these virtues. But that's how I define it. That's how I look at wisdom in my life. It's having the data and the analytics that allow me to make a fact-based decision with leveraging logic and reason at every turn.
Yeah. No, I think that's important. The way that I kind of look at it, you mentioned we mentioned distractions, maybe true measurements. So wealth, status, power, they're distractions. They are easy distractions because I think they're more tangible. But the strength of one's character, the love that a person leaves behind, it's an enduring legacy that truly measure us. Something that's really helped me as I reflect, it actually comes from a Buddhist teaching. And I love how a lot of these philosophies intersect on a lot of these great points, is people will find themselves, as you mentioned, maybe out of balance or out of harmony with nature. And the question a Buddhist would ask in this, if you are in the ocean and you're drowning, so sometimes we even say this, I feel like I'm drowning. I feel like I can't breathe. I feel like I don't have oxygen. Those are the things that we feel when we're out of balance. Would you hold on to your material possessions? Would you hold on to a bag of money? Would you hold on to your car? Because those things are actually just sinking you further, deeper into the ocean, where once you get so deep, you can't breathe. You literally have gravity pulling on you and it's feeling like you're pulling on. So the way to breathe, the way to feel the sun, the way to survive, the way to live, buoyancy, is actually to let go of those things. That's how you rise to the surface. And so it's a good reminder, right, when we think about these things, because maybe we're chasing the wrong thing. So I agree with you. Understanding that is the basic fundamental piece, and that's wisdom for us, and that's why. So when we know what is the right thing because we have wisdom, the next thing would be courage, right?
Yeah.
So we know what the right thing is, but making the decisions to do the right thing in the face of uncertainty or adversity, that's courage, right? So what would what would you say, what would the Stoics say about courage?
And so courage is deciding how to act in trying times. When you have adversity, doesn't mean you're not scared. It means
Right.
how do you act when you are scared, when you don't know what to do, when the path is not clear, when you decide, hey, I'm prioritizing the character of who I am. Excellent moral character is important to me. So I'm going to have the courage to step away from this thing that might be holding me down to search out true, meaningful work or true, good work where I can truly give back. So I think that for me is how we start to define courage as a Stoic would. I think it's in the movie Frozen where Elsa or Anna, with my daughters, we watch these movies. Courage doesn't mean you're not afraid. It means when you are afraid, you still go through with it, right?
Exactly it. Couldn't say it better. That was what was on my mind. I didn't make the Frozen reference, but I was gonna say, like, I think some people put value on, we say it as a confidence or doing what may be a hard thing without maybe care, but it's not. It's you still feel the thing. You still feel scared, but you do the right thing. That's true courage. And so we have wisdom. We kind of know. We see more clearly what is right is wrong. Courage is in the face of those decisions, doing the right thing. And then we have justice, which maybe I would say fairness, integrity, governing how we maybe act towards other people. What would the Stoics say about justice?
So I think that's where we lean back into the natural order of things. I think we
Mm-hmm.
can learn a lot from nature when it comes to justice. I think justice is as complicated as any of the virtues because I think we've been taught to understand that justice is whatever the law of the land is, which, depending on the
Mm,
city, state, county, country you're in, justice has a totally different definition, right?
yeah.
So, the purpose of today, we would think about justice as the act of doing what is right and just, regardless of what somebody else is going to do, regardless of how somebody else might. Give a quick example. If you reflect on a situation that you found yourself in, and if you own any responsibility in a situation that should require an apology from you to somebody else, justice, as a Stoic sees it, would be let me go apologize regardless of if this person did me wrong. Let me make my part correct. Let me make
Yeah.
my part right. So that's how we would think about justice at a very, very high level.
The fourth Stoic virtue is temperance. Um, this one, it's interesting. We do start with wisdom, we end with temperance, and temperance is a little bit of a keystone that helps lock everything else in for me in my mind, because we mention it. These things may not always be easy. I want to acknowledge that, because we're sitting here talking about these things, and I do want to talk about how we apply these things in life. But when I think about temperance, this is how you solidify this. This goes back to, who are you consistently? Self control, discipline. You mentioned harmony a lot. I always think balance. It doesn't mean that you don't feel, but it's what you control, which we often talk about. It's your reaction to things. Um, that's temperance to me, is given the circumstance, are we seizing control of what we can control and being disciplined, passing it through these filters? Is it wise? Am I acting with courage? Am I applying justice? Temperance is the application of all those things.
Yeah, exactly. And one more word I like to use, you used all the good ones, moderation, right? Finding
Yes.
moderation
Yeah.
in life, right? Are you tending to your soul? Are you tending to your physical health? Are you tending to your mental health, right? So balance across all the things. You get so many people that are just focused on work to gain wealth. That's all they
Yeah.
focus on, right? But they let everything else go, and then by the time they're 50, they die of a heart attack.
Hmm.
That's all they focused on, right? And so it's that moderation, that balance, right? Not living a life of excess in anything, whether it's working too many hours, eating too much food, drinking too much alcohol, not doing any of those things, because none of that allows for balance in your life, right? Having control over our impulses, our emotions, being able to feel. We might not be able to control how we feel or what makes us feel, but we absolutely have the power to control how we think of it, and therefore how we react to it or respond to it. And it truly is moderation, or temperance is the difference between reacting and responding.
Yeah.
Two totally different things, right? And if we are temperate, if we are moderate, if we are balanced, then we have the ability to respond versus react. That's what moderation is for me. That's what temperance is for me.
Yeah. Moderation is a good substitute for temperance in there. I think it was Marcus Aurelius that mentioned something like, anything in excess becomes torture,
Yeah.
right? And
Several different Stoics that have had similar quotes, but that's exactly right.
yeah, anything in excess. And sometimes we think about the Stoics as these ancient folks that were philosophizing. What does that have to do with modern life? The Dalai Lama, who a prominent being who's still alive, he has a story about this as well. He was kind of reflecting and thinking about modern life, and he thought it was very interesting. He's like, I watch people give up their time and their health to chase down wealth. And as they chase down this wealth, they need to spend wealth to buy back time and health. So they get into this cycle of, I'm giving my time and my health for wealth, and then I have to give back that wealth because I was unhealthy and I want to buy back time, right? So if I have money, I'm going to hire people to do things for me because that's my time back into this thing. Is like, people are kind of chasing their tail in this. So how do you break that cycle?
You zoom out, pretend you're standing above the earth, and zoom out and look at life, and you realize you're just a tiny little speck standing on a huge planet flying through space, right? I mean, it's pretty interesting to step back and think about that. And so I encourage folks to do that regularly. Um, what we're doing here is stepping back and zooming out on the chessboard of life, right? You always remind me when we talk. We participate in many different businesses. We've built businesses, entrepreneurs. We worked with some of the largest corporations in the country, in the world. Um, we step back and look at the chessboard of life for this purpose, right? And so what I would do is invite the listeners to step back and look at life and the chessboard of life, and take stock of where you are. What is your position on the chessboard right now? Where are you at in life right now? Do you like your position, or do you not like your position? Do you have the advantage, or do you have the disadvantage? And what I would say is, let's step back. And if we don't feel good, if we don't have peace, if we don't have joy, if we don't have tranquility, let's examine why. And let's step back and say, Are we people of a good moral character? Do we have excellent character or not? And if the answer is no, then let's have some grace with ourselves and say, okay, then let's focus in on what's truly good as the Stoics have defined it, and that is being a person of good moral character or excellent moral character. And the way we become a person of excellent moral character is moving the chess pieces of our life around the four cardinal virtues that we just spoke of, right? Moderation, justice, courage, and wisdom. And let's step back and examine which of these virtues we're going to focus on, whether it's all four every single day. I don't recommend that. But I would recommend starting with a meditation around each one of the virtues individually and encourage each of our listeners and friends to define for themselves what each of the virtues mean. One thing that's worked really, really well for me, which we'll have available for our listeners, I wear this Stoic pillar from the ancient Stoic, where the Stoicism began in ancient Greece, and it has inscribed on it all four of the virtues. I wear it all the time. I look at it multiple times a day. I hold it regularly because it's a symbol of what I have decided is important to me, which are the four Stoic virtues.
Beautiful. And I love it. And wherever you are in life, maybe you're at the beginning, maybe you're in the middle game, or you're playing out your end game today. We've mentioned this a couple of times, and these things are not easy. Yes, give yourself grace. There is a saying in chess that it's not the first mistake that's going to have you lose the game. It's it's usually the second mistake or the series of mistakes we would call blunders in chess. Blunders are always what kind of get us. Um, and there's a saying in sport. I think it's in the way of thinking in chess, particularly. People get tilted, so you maybe make a mistake, and that totally derails your thinking. You're no longer at peace with yourself. You're not thinking clearly. You're not going through things. When you feel that way, I think when you go through any of the philosophies of life, that's when you pause. That's a critical moment in chess. That's a critical moment in your life. You should pause, start thinking about, am I applying wisdom, applying courage, justice, and temperance in chess directly? Um, am I improving the weakest piece on the board for me? Do I understand what my strongest piece is and how to leverage that? What is my plan? Things to think about, right? The position on the board. What are my opponent's strengths and weaknesses? What are my strengths and weaknesses? How do those things come together to make the decision? And this is the one that I really like. It was Emmanuel Lasker. He says, when you find a good move, look for a better one. And I think that reminds us to pause and reflect. And we have guidance here. So when I think about our journey in life, it's a long path. There will be challenges. There's a few lights along the way: the light of wisdom, the light of courage, the light of justice, the light of temperance. Are we looking towards and allowing those lights to pave the way? So just like in life, as in chess and in business, we will get distracted. It's not always easy to see the way. That's the difference between tactics and strategy. I think people get those confused. I see it in business all the time. Tactics in chess, what we would say is knowing what to do when there's something to do. So there's a tactical move to make. Strategy is knowing what to do when there's nothing to do. And maybe it's not clear on what my next move may be, but that's when you ask yourself, what's my weakest piece? Can I improve that piece? And that's driving you towards the best outcome that you can have in that situation.
All good insight, all good relative examples. Encourage the listeners to be thoughtful this week, this month, on what are the virtues or virtue that you decide you want to work on. I think of it as regularly walking on a trail, right? Living here in Salt Lake City, we've got a lot of hiking trails I love, especially in the spring, summer, and fall, to take my kids to the different hiking trails, from the easiest to some of the toughest. And one of the things we talk about is if you were to fall down on that trail, are you just going to lay there for the rest of your life until you die? Or are you going to quickly pick yourself up, regardless of if you broke your leg or you're bleeding? You're probably going to figure it out, right? And that's the same thing in life. If you have a situation this week where you're not as wise as you'd like to be or not as courageous as you'd like to be, I tell people all the time, have some grace. You will stumble along the trail, you will fall down. But just as if you were hiking along a trail and you fall down, pick yourself up, dust yourself off, have some grace with yourself, and just keep moving. There is so much grace and beauty in continuing the journey, regardless. And sometimes you might find yourself saying, well, what's the point of continuing the journey? The point is, there's people's lives you can bless by just showing up. And you'll do it in ways that you never realize. And you might never realize it. But once in a while, life will give you a little sprinkle and show you here's a life you did bless. And had you given up back when things were tough, back when things were difficult, you wouldn't have been able to bless that life. And you bless one life, that person moves on to bless another life. And it is a chain reaction. And that's how we make the world a better place. That's how we give back. That's how we help people feel better. That's how we help people feel good. That's how we help people improve. So reflect on what virtue we're going to work on this week. Let's do a little bit better. Let's treat people a little bit kinder. Let's do something nice for somebody else. Let's think about how we, with wisdom, with courage, with justice, with moderation, make the world just a tiny bit better.
I love it. It's all there. And if you are struggling, what I would encourage you with, so as Adam mentioned, reflecting and what will you do the days and weeks ahead on reflection and applying to your life is if you are struggling, engage with us. We are here. We want to share this journey with you. We want to hear your feedback and your thoughts, but you could throw some scenarios at us. Send us an email, comment on the video, and we will work at applying it into our next discussion because this is a discussion with you. Adam, as always, I appreciate our conversations and appreciate that we get to do this with the audience. Thank you.
Stand by